Welcome to the Aichi Career Fair 101. This is our third professional development workshop of the fall quarter. If you haven't already, please sign in at this QR code or at this tiny URL. It is the same link no matter which one you choose. And just a note before we get started, we will be recording this. In fact, I believe you should have gotten a note when you came in that this is being recorded. If you do not speak during this event, your face or your box won't show up in the recording. If you don't care, feel free to speak up. If you do care, just stay quiet and put all your notes in the chat. And you won't be recorded. We also won't be recording the workshopping portion of this, only the part where we have slides up. So just keep that in mind. All right. So first, we're going to go through our agenda. So we're going to start with a land acknowledgement, do some introductions, talk about what career fairs are and why you should go to them and how to best prepare for them. And then we're going to do a mock career fair and a bit of a closing. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope we all have a good time going through this agenda. So, land acknowledgement. The UC San Diego community holds great respect for the land and the original people of the area where our campus is located. The university was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. We acknowledge their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their stewardship. So then I wanted to talk a little bit about what AICHE is in case you're unfamiliar. We are the American Institute of Chemical Engineers and we are the San Diego chapter, UC San Diego chapter. We are dedicated to promoting professional development of UCSD students, specifically through the lens of chemical engineering. We are also dedicated to fostering a welcoming and supportive community among our members. Some of our events include workshops like this one. We do them on all sorts of professional development events, topics rather. We have socials like this one. We all tried to stack fruit and it was really hard. We have bonfires and things like that. I think this was going to some sort of jumping house. We also do company tours when those are back in person. So this one we got all suited up, and for this one I think this was a brewery and that was a really fun tour. So hopefully we'll be able to bring those back once COVID is slightly more manageable. We also have cool programs such as IT projects, where you have the opportunity to work in teams to solve relevant and local environmental issues. A lot of our teams focus on wastewater treatment and energy generation, and they're fantastic. The applications for those should be coming out in the next couple of weeks, I want to say. We also have Family, which is our mentorship program and has a long record of creating meaningful and long-lasting friendships between people of different grades. It's pretty fantastic. I still talk to my mentor. We got tacos on Sunday. And we have Aichi committee. And so if you think that Aichi is pretty cool and you want to help us make the magic happen, we highly recommend you join committee where you will help us make events like this happen and make Aichi run smoothly. So I would also like to talk about our biggest event of the year, which is the Nano and Chemical Engineering Exhibition, or NICHE for short. This is a three-part event which includes an innovative solutions competition, which is a hackathon-style pitching competition with cash prizes of, I believe, up to $500. So I would highly recommend joining that one. It also features a career fair with about 20 companies that want to hire chemical engineers specifically. They're coming to this career fair because they know there's chemical engineers who are going to be here. So I would definitely recommend if you want an internship, a co-op, a full-time position, anything like that, please come to Niche. You will find people who want to hire you. It's almost guaranteed. And then we also have a grad school fair with at least 6 universities who are coming at this point from all over the country who want you to apply to their school if you're interested in going to grad school. So come learn about admissions processes and yeah, just make some connections. So this is our interest form over here. Go ahead and scan that QR code if you would like, if any of this sounded interesting to you, and we will send you more information when we have it for you. Is also on the next slide, where we have a few more details. So for the Innovative Solutions Competition, registration is due next Wednesday, I believe. Yes, next Wednesday at 6 p.m. We'll be having our kickoff event at 6 p.m. on next Thursday. And we have a really cool guest speaker coming. He is the director of the environmental division of Aichi, and I'm very excited to hear what he has to say. From that point on, you'll have about 72 hours to work with your team to come up with a solution to the problem statement that we will be giving you on Thursday. So you don't have to have a problem statement in mind or anything. And then you'll be doing your your pitching competition will be happening on Sunday, 24th at 3 p.m. And we have some pretty awesome people coming to help judge for that. They do research in air pollution and other environmental things like that. The career fair will be on Wednesday, October 27th from 1 to 4 p.m. and it will be virtual with at least with 2 companies per Zoom link. And the graduate school fair will be same day at 6 to 8 p.m. and it will take place on 1 or 2 Zoom links. We haven't quite decided, and we will be sending out more information on that if you indicate your interest in this interest form here. So I wanted to thank 2 of our niche industry sponsors. So the first one is Lawrence Livermore National Lab and Intel. So Rebecca, would you like to talk about Lawrence Livermore for a bit?
Yeah, definitely. So Lawrence Livermore National Lab is a federal research facility, which basically means that they get money from the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense. Their motto is science and technology on a mission, because they're able to do research in a more academic style without all the need to try and get all those grants. So it's this great interaction between research and industry, which is just very cool and streamlined. They have a lot of areas of focus, including materials engineering, applied electromagnetics, and so many more. But I'm going to focus on NIST and materials engineering division, as those are the 2 portions of LLNL that will be coming to niche. So the National Ignition Facility, NIST, is a facility that shoots lasers at a tiny target that you can see in the upper left-hand corner and forces fusion of a hydrogen fuel, which is super interesting. There's a lot of nanoscale applications with the targets, as well as more physics with the lasers. So all of that is very interesting. There's also a bunch of computer science that goes into it and materials as well. And then MED is Materials Engineering Division, which also does a lot of really cool stuff. They do advanced manufacturing, which is additive manufacturing in various different and extremely cool ways to get very complex structures. Bioprinting, there's a project where they're actually bioprinting cancer tumors to understand them better and find better treatments. There's a project called DNA Tracks, which is little tiny particles that have a DNA base in them that they can then release onto the New York subway and see how the air flows through in order to understand better how to deal with threats that go through the subway air system. And other projects such as aiche, which is basically putting a human system on a chip in order to test pharmaceuticals and other sorts of things on the chip without having to use animal testing. So the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory is really pushing the boundaries of science and is just on the edge of everything from physics to bio engineering. You can find a whole bunch of different things you can do there. So it has something for everybody. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, LLNL is, good.
Sorry, if you want to know more, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, LLNL is awesome. And if you want more information, yes, talk to Rebecca and also go to their website, llnl.gov. They have tons of web pages about just everything they're doing. It's pretty incredible to just read through, which if you're, bored and looking for something to do, read about LLNL. It's pretty great. So our next niche sponsor is Intel. They're the world's largest semiconductor chip manufacturer by revenue. That's what Wikipedia said anyways. They are making technology that can enrich the lives of every person on Earth. That's kind of their mission statement. And fun fact is that they developed the x86 microprocessor series, and these are in most PCs, which I think is pretty cool. So probably the computer that you're on right now as you're watching this workshop probably has an Intel part in it, which is pretty neat. We met an Intel rep last week, and she was very excited to meet us because apparently they need a lot of chemical engineers. They need a lot of process engineers, etching engineers, purification engineers. Oops, I have that twice. Wastewater engineers, and they also, for wastewater and water purification, Intel has a big push towards making their water clean before they release it into whatever body of water that they're releasing it into. So they need a lot of chemical engineers to help them deal with what do you do when you have this contaminated water. So we can help with that. There's also lithography and CMP, which I think is chemical manufacturing products, something like that. I forget exactly what it stands for, but if you search on their website, like their external career pages here, If you search any of these terms, you'll get a bunch of hits for jobs that you can apply for as a chemical engineer. So I think that's pretty cool. And then if you would like to join their talent forum, there's a link for that here. And then as I mentioned, this is their careers page where you can find all the jobs that you can apply for. And these are some cool pictures that I found from their media area. So these are some of their processors. I don't know exactly what that is, but it looks pretty neat. Here's one of their clean rooms, and here's, it looks like some sort of wastewater treatment facility. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it's a really great place to work. They're all over the country, and they are, I believe they're international as well. So you can go all sorts of places with Intel. With that said, we're going to get into the actual workshop part of this event. So we're going to talk about career fairs. So what is a career fair? These are a couple pictures that I pulled. This is what a typical in-person career fair will look like. You have a bunch of tables with recruiters behind the tables and students walking around talking to those recruiters. Typically, this is how people dress. It's pretty formal, but it's not, like super intensely professional. It's like business casual plus, I would call it. And the main point of a career fair is to connect people who want a job with people who have jobs to fill. So really, if for both people to go away happy from this situation is for the person who has a job to get someone who wants a job to fill that job. It's a pretty interesting interaction, and hopefully everyone can go home happy. So, what do you want to do before you go to a career fair? You're going to want to look at companies that are going to the fair and decide which ones you want to talk to and do a little research on them. So obviously you can't talk to all of the companies because, well, usually you can't talk to all of the companies because there's usually like just so many that it would not even be feasible. But even if it would be feasible to talk to all of them, it's not always something that you would want because a lot of times companies aren't all there for you specifically. So for example, at the science and tech career fair that we had last week, there were companies who only do say software. And if you're not interested in software, you really don't need to talk to them or so yeah, you don't need to spend your time on that when you could be talking to other recruiters. And you want to do a little research on them because when you go into that conversation with a recruiter at the career fair, you want to know what that company does. You can tailor your resume to it, tailor your elevator pitch to it, and have a knowledgeable conversation so that the recruiter knows that you're serious about wanting a job there. I guess that's what the next point is. What do they do? What jobs might you be interested in there? So what you can do is you can look on their careers website before you talk to the recruiter to say, oh, I think I might be interested in this kind of job here, or just more in general, I think this company might need someone who can do wastewater treatment, and I can do that. That's interesting to me. For the handshake career fairs in particular, you want to sign up for information sessions or one-on-ones. Not all virtual career fairs have that, and not all in-person career fairs have that either. So this is only if applicable. But you do want to make sure you do that before the career fair so that you aren't in the middle of a career fair signing up for one-on-ones. You'll also want to update your resume and get it reviewed. Ideally, you would make a slightly different resume for each company to highlight the different skills that you want that company to know that you have. But if you can't really do that, or you don't have the time, or there's not really a way to do that, I suppose. Like for Handshake, you can only have one highlighted resume at a time, I think. So you can just make one that kind of fits as much of you as possible. Yeah. So then you also want to update your elevator pitch and practice it, and ideally have a slightly different elevator pitch for each company. And this is a lot easier than having a different resume for each company, because what you need to do in your elevator pitch is say, your name, what year are you, what are you looking for, and then a little bit about the company and how you relate to it, and then your ask of them. So for each company, just say, well, for, Illumina, a biotech company, I'm interested in doing a process engineering internship. So you can talk about how the like projects and extracurriculars you've done have kind of led up to how you'd be a great fit at Illumina. But then say you go to talk to more of a tech kind of company, you can talk about how you were on some sort of robotics team at some point in your life, and you can talk about how that prepares you for a good career at their companies. You can talk about different things in your elevator pitch to make you more attractive to the recruiter. You also want to dress to impress. If this is virtual, you only need to worry about, the head to your waist-ish area. Just wear like a nice shirt and like a jacket, or whatever is like business casual plus to you is what I would say to wear. And then of course for an in-person career fair, you'd want to dress to impress from head to toe. And I think the most important part of going into a career fair, like before the career fair, is going in with a good mindset. Because if you're going in there and you're scared or you're anxious or you don't really want to be there, you are not going to have a good time, and the recruiter knows that. They can sense it just by however you're interacting, the energy that you give off. So you want to go in with the mindset of, I'm here to rock it. I am going to find a good person to talk to. I'm going to have a good conversation or multiple of them, and I'm just gonna be myself and just put myself out into the world and see what happens. That's the mindset I like to go in with. If you like to go in with a different mindset that has a similar energy that's going to get you hyped for it, and make sure that you go in there and you have the best time you can, whatever mindset that is, go for it. So during a career fair, there's a lot of things that you need to remember. First, things that you want to do is be patient. If you're in person, there are lines behind each of those recruiters, because there's a lot of people who want to talk to them, and sometimes they can get really long. If you're doing a virtual career fair, there can be long wait times sometimes. So just be patient. Know that you will get there eventually, and if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You know, you can contact them some other way. Finding them on LinkedIn is always a good plan. You also want to stay calm, especially when it's in person. It's very easy to get overwhelmed or anxious, especially if there's other people around you who are overwhelmed and anxious. Um, so it's a good idea if you need to just take a step back from an in-person career fair or a virtual career fair. Just take a step back, like turn your camera off, or just like stand in a corner somewhere and just take a few deep breaths. Please do. Because the last thing you want is to have a nervous breakdown in front of a recruiter. Like, that doesn't help anyone. So please just take a few deep breaths and get yourself back into the mindset. And also be honest. Don't lie to recruiters about your background or your goals to try to get a job. Um, if you're not fit for the company and the company's not fit for you, it's better to just get a job somewhere else. And I know it might be tempting to say, my goals align perfectly with this company, but if they really don't, then don't lie about that, because it's not going to help anyone in the long run. Other things that you will not want to do is cut in front of other people online. That's especially important in-person career fairs. You also don't want to take up lots of time with a recruiter, especially if there is a long line behind you. If there's no one behind you, of course, it's okay to talk a little bit longer. And then you also don't want to just give the recruiter your resume and then not say anything, or just give it to them and then walk away. You want to have a conversation, so you need to speak about something. All right, this is a lot of words. So this is roughly how a conversation at a career fair in person will go. So you will approach the recruiter, and if they were just talking to other people, it's a good idea to give them a few seconds to breathe, kind of reset, maybe drink some water. So just like take a few seconds to walk up to them. You're going to shake their hand, which I know is kind of a bizarre concept in these COVID worlds, and maybe we aren't allowed to shake hands at this point. But if we are at some point in the future, shake their hand firmly, say hello, and then you're gonna wanna make a tiny bit of small talk or like a starter conversation. So you can say something like, I hope your day's been going well, or how are you doing? Something simple like that. You can comment on your surroundings, for example. There's a lot of people here, how I hope your voice is doing okay, or something like that. So then you're going to want to transition into giving your elevator pitch. And of course, you're going to end with your ask. And something to remember is that if the recruiter interrupts you or sidetracks you during your pitch, roll with it. Don't try to just keep talking about your elevator pitch. Answer their question, or like go on that tangent they want you to go on. Roll with them. And then if they give you the opportunity to get back on track and finish your elevator pitch. It's also good to have your friends practice with you your elevator pitch, and you can ask your friends to sidetrack you so you can practice getting back on track. And then at some point, make sure that you give them your resume. That can either be kind of at the start of it can be wherever in your elevator pitch that it makes the most sense to give them your resume, give them your resume. So you're going to want to have your resume printed out. I forgot to put that in the before the career fair, to print out your resumes. Print out like at least one for each company that you want to go to, and then probably like 5 or so more in case you just talk to others. So then what's going to happen next is you're going to respond to questions that they ask you, and you're going to want to ask your own questions. And the idea of this is to have a nice conversation, because the idea is that they're getting to know you and trying to see if they want you at their company. So if you have a nice conversation with them, they're going to think, oh yes, I want this person at my company. I want to see them every day in the break room, that kind of thing. So then you're going to say thank you and have a nice day, and then you're going to walk away. And my personal advice is that you don't go to the table immediately next to that recruiter and then start talking to that recruiter. I don't know if recruiters think that's a rude thing to do. I just feel like that might be a little bit rude. So I would like go to a table they can't quite see, and then if you want to talk to that recruiter that's next to them, come back like, 20 minutes later or something like that. And then finally, what you want to do before you talk to your next recruiter, if you have that option, if you need to go talk to them right away, that's fine. But if you can take a couple minutes, make sure that you take some notes about what you and that recruiter talked about, especially if they gave you any instructions. For example, if they gave you their business card and told you to email them your resume, write that down so that you don't forget it, because I would absolutely forget that after a long day of talking to people. Okay, so some things to keep in mind at an in-person career fair is to maintain eye contact. That's really important, especially when you're in person, is to just keep that point of contact with the person so they know that you're listening to them and they're listening to you. And as I mentioned, you need to dress to impress your whole outfit, not just your top. You also might consider getting a professional looking folder or a padfolio to hold your resume and your notes. A padfolio, I believe, it's like a note, it's like a folder with a notebook kind of embedded into it, and it looks really nice. It looks very professional. So that's something you can consider getting if you're an in-person career fair. I would recommend that if you can, don't carry your backpack with you at the career fair. I was at one career fair where there was one person who had been carrying their backpack the whole time, and they'd been there for like 3 hours. And I was like, oh, I would take that from you and put that in my dorm and just hold it there for you so that you wouldn't have to carry it for 3 hours. So I would recommend keeping it with a friend or leaving it at home, just so you don't have it on your back the whole time while you're trying to talk to these recruiters and your back is hurting. It's just not, it's one more thing to distract you. You also want to be aware of how loud you're being and how loud you need to be. So if you're like me, your voice is naturally pretty small. So you'll need to speak up, speak from your diaphragm. Just be aware of how loud your surroundings are and how you can match that and be appropriate to that surroundings. Your body language also really matters when you're in person, because you're right there. So, you don't want to be fidgeting. You don't want to be like looking over your shoulder whenever someone walks by. You want to be pretty still, pretty focused, and of course, maintaining eye contact. Keep your hands, holding that padfolio is a good thing to do with your hands. If not, keep them at your sides or like cross them gently, whatever comes naturally to you and doesn't look super awkward. I'm gonna have to relearn how to not put my hands in awkward places because I don't know what to do with them. It's so always something I've struggled with. So we're learning together. All right, virtual career fairs. How does the conversation go? It's a little bit different, but not too different. So first, you're going to enter the video room where the recruiter is, or if they haven't come yet, where they will be. You're going to say hello and make some small talk. Same thing as last time. It's just kind of, how's your day been going? How are you doing? If they have an interesting background, you can ask them about that. Where'd you get that piece of art? Or I see it's really sunny outside where you are. I hope it's a nice day. Then you're going to give your elevator pitch. Same thing as in person. You're going to end with your ask. And if you get sidetracked, just roll with it. And then Handshake gives recruiters access to your resume, I believe, but other career fairs might not. So if they don't have access to your resume, make sure that you ask them, can I upload this to the chat or can I screen share or something like that at some point during your elevator pitch? Because you want them to see your resume because you worked hard on that. And then you're going to respond to questions and ask your own, having a nice conversation. Say thank you and have a nice day, leave the room, and then of course make your notes about what you talked about and any instructions that they gave you. And some things to keep in mind for virtual is, again, maintaining eye contact, which I find even harder online in some ways because I'm never quite sure if I should look at the camera or at the person. So just do your best and they'll understand. Another important thing is to make sure that your background is okay and or professional. So you want to avoid having people walking behind your camera You want to avoid having non-professional items or decorations. So for example, I have like fairy lights up here. I would take those down for a career fair. Um, Ideally, you want to have your background be a neutral color or a texture. So if you can have just a white wall behind you, that would be perfect. Or like a wooden wall, something like that, but something pretty bland, for lack of a better word. I guess professional. Um, and you can also use blur or virtual background if your computer is able to do that, and if the system that you're using allows for that. I don't believe Handshake allows for that, but Zoom does. So if you go into any career fairs on Zoom, that's always an option. And then another thing going to want to do is make sure that if you have any roommates or family or anything like that who's living with you, make sure that they know what you're doing so they aren't, downstairs playing music at like 110% volume, or they aren't over with all of their friends, or they're not yelling, or just aren't even coming into the room and asking you questions, because you want to be in a room by yourself, basically, as much as that's possible. Or if someone is there, for them to be quiet so that they won't distract you and they won't kind of get in the way of your conversation. So some general tips about career fairs is don't give one-word answers to the recruiters, and don't tell epic ballads. So this kind of comes back to your timing thing, or I guess that's a point down here. But yeah, the basic idea is that you have a limited time with these people, so you want to make a good impression. So you don't want to give a one-word answer that they then have to like pull a conversation out of you, and you don't want to just dump all of the words onto them. You want it to be a good conversation where you're talking a good amount and they're talking a fair amount. So just keep that in mind. You also don't want to be too cocky or too modest. So you don't want to say, I did all these things, I'm amazing. If you don't hire me, you're missing out, that kind of thing. Don't say that. But also don't be too modest where you're like, well, yes, I've worked on these projects as a team, but I never led anything, or I never like took initiative with anything. No, you did those things. If you did something, make sure you say that. So give credit where credit is due. If you did a team project and everyone contributed equally, say that. If you were in a team project and you were the leader and everyone else just ditched you on the last day, say that. And then again, be aware of how much time you're taking, because especially in in-person career fairs, it is very fast. You're in line and these lines are long. So there's a lot of pressure behind you to do your conversation quickly and get out. It's a little different in virtual career fairs because you typically have a certain amount of time, and then you'll either be kicked out or you'll have like a softer way of getting out of that conversation. So just be aware of how much time you have, how much time you're taking, and how long it's going to take you to wrap up a conversation. And finally, just have a good time, because if you're having a good time, that tells the recruiters that you'd be a good person at their company. Because if you go to a career fair and you are having a terrible time and you're just kind of giving off this energy of, I don't want to be here, this is awful, they wouldn't want to hire you. So if you're having a good time, that that just makes them want to hire you more. I would think, if I was a recruiter. So then after the fair, you're going to want to message all of the recruiters you spoke with and say thank you. You can do that on Handshake if the fair was on Handshake. You can also reach out to them on LinkedIn, or if they gave you their email them directly. Um, you don't have to email. You don't have to message the recruiters if you aren't interested in continuing that relationship at all. Like, first example, say you talk to the recruiter and you were like, wow, that company just gives me the wrong vibes. You don't have to message them. But if they gave you even the slightest vibes that you were like, yeah, I could work there, just send a quick thank you. Say, hey, it was nice to meet you yesterday. I hope we can stay in contact, or I hope we can connect on LinkedIn, or I hope you have a nice day. Anything simple like that. Just say thank you. And then you're also going to want to go through those notes that you took and follow any instructions the recruiters gave you. So for example, they might give you instructions of email me your resume, or apply to this job in particular, or email this other person, or go to this event that we're having on Thursday, something like that. If they gave you instructions, follow those instructions. So this is something that actually surprised me when I was first working on these slides. Is I googled career fair, and this is what happened. It was, "Our career fair is worth it?" And I was surprised because I thought it was like kind of a known that career fairs are worth it. So I was surprised that when you Google career fair, this is the first question that comes up. Anyways, so Google's answer, or at least from Career Fair Plus, is that college career fairs have immediate value and years of potential value. A college career fair gives students a positive start in their career research, as well as valuable skills for future career searches. Employers find the students they need to fill entry-level positions and internships. They should have mentioned that. um, so I personally know people who have started their careers from career fairs. And so I think they're useful for that, as well as for finding your internship or just networking. Just practicing networking is also extremely valuable because you have no idea how important it is to network and just to know people. It gets you places. It's kind of crazy just knowing people and having conversations. So I would say career fairs are worth it. Career Fairs Plus would agree, which is probably a biased source, but you know what? We'll take it. So I would recommend going to career fairs. It's a good time. So then we wanted to talk about how the niche career fair is going to work, because the handshake career fairs have already passed. So the next one that I'm concerned about anyways is the niche career fair, which is happening again Wednesday, October 27th, 1 to 4 p.m. It will be on Zoom, and this is how it's going to work. So you are this circle here. And there are going to be multiple Zoom links. I believe there's going to be 10 Zoom meeting links. Each one is going to be for 2 companies because we have about 20 companies coming. So for example, let's say we have LLNL and Azure in one Zoom room. So it's what we're going to call a waiting room. There's going to be 2 queues within that room, and you're going to put your name on whichever one or both that you want to talk to a recruiter from. So outside of this Zoom room, there's going to be multiple breakout rooms, and in each breakout room, there's going to be one representative from LLNL or Azure. Make sense? Yes? Okay, I see a nod. Good. So then there's going to be another Zoom room that has, for example, the EPA and Qualcomm. And then again, all of the representatives are going to be in breakout rooms, and there's going to be a queue for each one of these companies. And then say we have another one, it's Intel and Chemours. Again, 2 queues and reps in each breakout room. In the actual niche, like I said, I think there's going to be 10, so there will be more waiting rooms than this. And I just wanted to flash the screen with all of the companies that are coming to niche. So get ready for a lot of colors and shapes, if it will happen. There they are. So if any of these companies look interesting to you, I would highly recommend coming to niche because, like I said, these are companies that are coming to see chemical engineers and nano engineers or like related majors. So if you're not a chemical or a nano engineer, you're still welcome to come. You might just have to explain because they're expecting chemical engineers and nano engineers, but they're like, oh hey, it's an environmental engineer or a biologist or something like that. You know, that's cool. We hire those people. So yeah, we have lots of companies coming. They're all very excited to see you. All of everyone who I have personally emailed about this has always been like, oh my gosh, I want to come to that. It's fantastic. So they're very excited to talk to you. Okay, so what questions do you have? I just gave you a lot of information. So please, in the chat or unmute, let me know what questions you have about career fairs, about how to prepare for them, about what to ask when you get there. Yeah, I'll give us maybe 30 seconds to come up with some questions. I'll be checking the chat over here.
Hi, Eleanor. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So for niche, do we have the option of having multiple resumes for each company?
Absolutely. So with niche,
Okay.
it's going to be taking place on Zoom. So what you can do is you can have all of your resumes kind of pre-ready. And then once you get into a breakout room with, say, an Intel rep, we'll do an Intel rep. So you go into your Intel rep room and you'll be able to screen share your resume or drop into the chat, and then they'll be able to see that. And then you can go into, say, the LLNL room, and you'll be able to drop a different resume in there. So you can absolutely have multiple resumes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? Okay then. Then we are going to go into a mock career fair. This mock career fair is designed to feel like the actual niche career fair because we want you all to have the best time possible there. And I personally always like knowing what to expect. So that always makes me have a better time. So in attendance at this career fair are these four companies: is the generic biotech company, the chemical company incorporated, the electricity and semiconductor industry, and researching stuff is our jam. And you can tell that I wrote these names at about 2 in the morning. They're very creative. Anyways, so like I said, similar to the niche career fair. So instead of having everyone get off of the Zoom link and then go on to 2 other Zoom links for these 4 companies, we're going to be having 2 waiting room breakout rooms. One is going to be for the generic biotech company and the chemical company incorporated, and the other one is for the other 2. And then you'll be going into these rooms and you're going to put your name on the queuing list. And I don't know if that's spelled correctly. If it's not, I'm sorry. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your name on the queuing list, and then you're going to wait for an aiche volunteer to move you into the company breakout room, or move there yourself, but just wait for them to tell you that it's your turn. And then you're going to have your time with the company. They're in a breakout room for each. Oh my gosh, I need to start over. I'm so sorry. So there will be a breakout room for each company because we only have 1 rep for each company. We're keeping it simple. And do not go into these rooms unless you are moved there by an aiche volunteer or an aiche volunteer tells you that it's your turn to go in. And then after you have your time with the rep, I think we're giving you 5 minutes. Please go back to the waiting room where you were in, so you can tell that waiting room controller that you're done, and it's the next person can go. So since these are not real companies, these are also not real reps, these are your peers, they're aiche volunteers. So obviously you didn't do your research on these companies because they don't exist. So what you can do instead is ask the aiche volunteer to listen to your elevator pitch and critique it, or critique your resume. And yeah, so just get some advice from them about your professional development, and just have a nice conversation, and then come back to the waiting room that you were in, tell that waiting room controller that you had a nice conversation and you're done now, and so they can put the next person in. Sound good, everyone? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. All right. So just so that you know what to expect, this is what the waiting room is going to look like. It'll have this slide up on it, and the breakout room controller, or waiting room controller, I should have edited that, is going to put your name here, and then the time that if you are the first one on the list, they'll put the time that you'll be pulled back into the waiting room, or that you should come back to the waiting room here, so that you can just keep track of that, and then whoever else is on the queue is going to have their names here and here, etc. Then we have that for both companies, all 4 companies. All right, sound like a plan, everyone? All right. Welcome back from the mock career fair. Hopefully you all had a good time. So I wanted to ask, are there any questions about the career fair from the participant side? And while you're thinking of questions, putting them into the chat or unmuting, remember that at the real niche career fair, instead of having breakout rooms and kind of all on one Zoom link, there will be 2 companies per Zoom link, and there will be 1 rep per breakout room. So you will have more Zoom links to deal with, but hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense and be a little easier in the long run. So any questions, anything like that? 30 seconds. Maybe a little bit less. All right. So with that said, I'm just going to talk about our upcoming events. So we have our bonfire on Friday, and I'm very excited. It's our first in-person event since COVID happened, and that will be at 6 to 8 p.m. at La Jolla Shores. We'll be taking the bus together, so that's pretty exciting. And then we have an HKUST and UCSD social. So HK is Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, if I am doing that correctly. And this date is incorrect. We decided to move it back, but we will be doing speed dating with them and just learning about chemical engineers who are at a whole different university, whole different side of the world. It's really fun to just see, how their system works and what classes they're taking, and that 101A is still hard for everyone in the world. And then next week, also on Wednesday at 5 p.m. or potentially 6 p.m. or no, it will be at 5 p.m. Sorry, I was mixing up some dates in my head. We'll be having a Q&A session with a Career Center advisor, and the goal of this Q&A session is to get all your professional development questions answered. So if you have any questions about, is my elevator pitch good? Does this resume look good? What kind of questions do I ask a recruiter at a career fair? All that sort of thing. We're going to get those answered at this Q&A session, and that will be next Wednesday on the same Zoom link. And yeah, so that's pretty exciting. Thank you for coming. Please connect with us by checking out all of our social media, websites, etc. on our link tree. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. So yeah, have a great night, everyone.